one of the things that comes up a lot is this concept of third-party testing.
We stand behind every product that we produce. I want to look at things like allergens and contaminants.
I mean, you even chelate magnesium glycinate in-house, which I don't think most people do.
We have a bird's eye view to everything happening in the industry. And so it allows us to really choose what we feel are the best of the best and put our best foot forward.
Welcome to Inside the Formula, a SuppCo original series where we go behind the science of supplements that have earned the Tested by SuppCo certification. Each episode, I sit down with the formulators, chemists, and scientists behind these products to find out what it actually takes to make a supplement that works.
I'm Jordan Glenn, head of science at SuppCo. What happens when a supplement company has over 30 scientists and conducts over 15,000 tests a month? That's what we're going to learn today with Rachel Kilroy. Rachel currently serves as Senior Director of Global Innovation and Product Development at Better Being. Her passion for integrative medicine, coupled with over 17 years of experience in the natural products industry, has driven successful product launches across the space. Prior to her current role, she worked as Solaray's brand manager, overseeing the herbal category. Rachel also has a deep understanding of the sales and retail side of the business, having managed at Whole Foods Market and surveys as a sales representative. Rachel loves to educate with her understanding of clinical herbalism, women's health, microbiome health, and laboratory analysis. Before we begin, an important reminder. Tested by SuppCo is an independent certification program that SuppCo offers as part of its business model. Brands featured in this series have paid fees to have their products analyzed by the tested program, which tests the products that consumers actually buy to verify their active ingredient claims. Test results are published transparently, pass or fail, and cannot be influenced. Today's episode includes a brand partner. And now, my conversation with Rachel Kilroy. Welcome. Rachel, good to see you. Thank you for joining.
Thanks for having me.
And where are you located?
I'm in Salt Lake City, Utah.
And is that where the Solaray offices are?
We have a marketing and sales office in Salt Lake City, and our manufacturing facility is in Ogden, Utah, which is about 45 minutes north of here. So Utah is where we make the bulk of our products and where the bulk of our employees
I love
are
Utah.
operating from.
What is Utah like this time of year?
Right now, we're starting to get warm for the summer, starting to heat up. Our summers can be pretty hot. We can usually top over 100 degrees. It's pretty dry here. The dry factor, people always ask, why do so many companies manufacture supplements in Utah? There's so many of us here, and it's because it's very dry. So that dry air is actually part of the reason we're located here. So
That's super interesting. I didn't actually know that.
Yeah.
So I feel like that's like some insider knowledge that you wouldn't normally get without like being in the biz.
Humidity can be hard to account for in manufacturing. So, having lower humidity certainly helps.
Oh, I love that. What's funny is I know a lot of supplement companies that are like manufactured in Florida, which we think would be the complete opposite because it's very humid down there.
Yeah, you have to dehumidify in many instances. So
Interesting. So one of the things I know about your background is you actually like came up in the retail side of things before you joined Solaray. Speaking of how you build products, all this kind of stuff. So what did that perspective teach you about how you think about building products and manufacturing supplements these days?
yeah, so I started working in health food stores, believe it or not, back in high school. So I spent a lot of time, even in my teen years, helping customers on the sales floor, directly speaking with customers, and just really hearing directly from the consumers what they were experiencing in their day-to-day life and getting to kind of help assist in their needs. And it's really kind of stuck with me through the entirety of my career. It's really helped me to understand the market, and to really stay close to the consumer, to stay close to the trends. And it also certainly informed my decision to come work for Solaray. Having worked in the industry, I knew I wanted to go work for a company that really stood for quality and was a trusted brand that was respected throughout the industry. And so it's definitely been a huge influence on my career as a whole.
I love that. So you are literally like an OG in the industry all the way back to like your high school days. That's wild.
Yeah. So many,
And
many
so
years.
So Solaray has a large catalog that's developed over 50 plus years, and you've reformulated a significant chunk of this catalog. So when you inherit a product with this kind of history, how do you even begin to decide what you need to look at, what you need to change, update? How does that process work for you?
So our brand Solaray dates back to 1973, and it was founded by a man named Jim Beck, and he really was a true pioneer of the industry. And so we really try every time we look at reformulating an existing product that has a legacy in this company. We really try to honor the spirit of the formulas he created as much as possible. And we are really lucky to have wonderful records on these products and why they were actually created in the first place. Often when we're making changes, it's for very intentional reasons. Clinical science is always evolving, and so if something changes, we want to have the flexibility to change with it. If a raw material has changed, or even dietary guidelines have changed, maybe some new testing instruments and methodologies have become available. So we strive to remain flexible and innovative while also staying true to the roots of our brand and trying to keep our brand legacy in mind as we make the decision to change anything in the catalog.
And that's a big deal because you guys actually manufacture 99% of your products in-house. And so what does that actually mean then when you think about the quality side of things on the production, like bringing that much of the production internal? What does that mean for you all?
So a lot of it really is that we can control so much of the process and really stick to that quality story. We rely both on first and third party testing to triple authenticate the quality of our ingredients and process, or not products. In addition to using really state of the art equipment, we have, over 30 degree scientists on staff. Our in house labs are actually third party accredited to meet the rigorous ISO IEC standards that require our labs to function independently from our operation. So all of our incoming raws have a certificate of analysis from a third party lab. And as I mentioned, our third party lab is, accredited to uphold very rigorous standards for scientific processes, standards, documentation, and conflict of interest solutions. Some interesting things about the way that we operate is that our lab reports to our quality department, not our operations department. Um, and why does all of this matter? Well, having all of this in house means that we can do a lot of work in house with our own labs. On average, it takes like 13 working days to receive results on a test. In in-house testing, we can get results in 3 days on average. And 13 working day turnaround times mean a lot of brands have to actually reduce or limit or what we call skip lot test to help keep their products in stock. We don't have to do that. Having our in-house labs means that we have the ability to test every lot of every raw material that comes into our facility. It wouldn't be affordable for us to do this if we were doing all of our testing out of house. So it makes it financially possible for us to do a full panel test on every lot of every raw material that comes in. And a full panel includes potency, heavy metals, microbials, and contaminants. FDA regulations actually do allow for what we call skip lot testing. They can allow for relying on initial upfront supplier audits and being able to test every so many lots that come in. But we don't do that. We test anyway, which is above and beyond the FDA regulation. Um, and it's really also something that we are very proud of to point out that so much of our staff is degreed scientists. It's not common. A lot of third-party labs usually employ mostly just technicians. So there's definitely some things we do that are a bit unique. And a lot of it is attributed to the fact that we control so much of our process in-house.
And I love that. And one of the things you talked about there's the number of scientists that you have on staff. And so selfishly, because I'm also a scientist, I think you have somewhere around 30 or more scientists in the labs. Now you're running thousands and thousands of tests a month in ISO certified labs. What does this level of infrastructure that you have, what does this let you do that maybe you couldn't do otherwise, having this many scientists literally in-house?
Well, as a vertically integrated business, we're not overly reliant, as I mentioned, on any manufacturer or any supplier, so we can really enforce that quality first ethos. Even rigorous certifications like the GMP certification have gaps. So Solaray's integrated business model allows us to take quality above and beyond, and it can reduce the risks of any of those gaps. Um, as we mentioned, Solaray manufactures 99% of our 700 plus products in house. And GMP doesn't require every lot of every raw being tested, it allows reliance on those supplier audits, as I mentioned. But we here at Solaray, we follow all the supplier audits for GMP, but we also do full panel testing for every lot of raw materials. And even then, we're rejecting over 2% of raw material batches that come in for not meeting our standards, even after all of that supplier vetting. If we were only following GMP standards, we could potentially miss that 2% that we reject annually. Um, Another thing to keep in mind is that GMP certifications that a brand has for their facility doesn't necessarily extend to a co-manufacturer and sub-manufactured item. Um, and new methodology development is something that we're able to handle in-house as well for new raw materials and for our certification approvals to keep our accreditation. It allows us huge time savings, and also we just have such a exceptional talent with all of our scientists here because they love the work that they get to do.
I love that. And you talked a lot there about when raw material arrives, like there's actually some portion of it that you are not accepting. I want to talk a little bit more about that. So walk me through what happens when raw material arrives at your facility from going in quarantine all the way to release. What does this process look like to make sure that that material is fit for purpose?
Sure. So when our raw materials come in, they come into an entirely separate building from our main manufacturing area, and we quarantine those raw materials until they can go through all of the proper testing. They stay in a quarantine with our quality control team. So at incoming, the raw materials are going to be tested. We create what's called a composite sample for testing. So we might get, 30, 40, 50 barrels of the same material in one lot. And we're not just taking a sample from one barrel. That composite sample is taken from multiple barrels, from tops, from bottoms. It's a mix of many barrels. Um, and that's what's called a composite sample. And then we begin to test against any claims we're making. So if the product says something like gluten-free or made without soy or non-GMO, we're going to test for glyphosates, and we're going to test to make sure the presence of any of those allergens are not there. We test for identity. Is this what we say it is? Is it the right botanical species or the correct amino acid? We test for potency. Um, if you had a turmeric root extract standardized to 95% curcumin, well, we want to make sure there's 95% curcumin in there. And we test for purity. We test for micros. This includes E. coli, coliform, enterobacteria, staph, yeast, mold, and then a total plate count. We test for heavy metals. That includes arsenic, lead, cadmium, and mercury. And we even have a really fancy instrument called an ultra performance liquid chromatography tandem mass spectrometry instrument. And this actually allows us to test for forever chemicals such as PFAS. We keep records of any retain of everything just in case there's a potential need to pull something later. Um, we have other tests too, things like physical property testing, for example. We might test the particle size on a powdered material, or we might do density testing on a liquid. And we also perform what are called organoleptic tests. These are sensory tests for taste, smell, odor, color. Does this match our previous records for the same raw material? So a lot goes into the process just to get the raw material to release from quarantine and then to allow it to come into production.
So that's so important. You list out all the different tests that you guys are doing internally just to qualify a material to even be able to use in a supplement. And when we think about testing, one of the things that comes up a lot is this concept of third party testing. It's become a buzzword. The rigor behind it varies wildly. What does independent verification mean for Solaray, and why did you guys ultimately decide to pursue the tested by SuppCo certification?
So the supplement industry is FDA regulated, but we believe here at Solaray we go well beyond the FDA standards. We are a GMP certified facility. We are audited by the NSF, which is more rigorous than the FDA's base requirements. So unlike the FDA, GMP requires environmental monitoring, which includes testing the following for pathogens: air quality, things like water sources and drains, and even contact surfaces. The lab, as I mentioned, is third party accredited to uphold ISO IEC standards, which is a big deal internationally. And then, key retailers sometimes require their brands to manufacture in the GMP certified facilities. And something that people don't know about us, but a third of our business is actually international and highly concentrated in the EU. The EU has rigorous regulatory requirements for the supplement industry, and we meet all of those and then some. So, transparency is one of our core values here at the company, and we stand behind every product that we produce. So, we're really excited to partner with SuppCo because we welcome the opportunity to show off what we think we do best.
I love it. And so, Rachel, you specifically act as like the spec gatekeeper internally at Solaray. Talk to me about what that role looks like for you in practice, and walk me through even a time when something didn't clear the bar.
Sure. So, when everything comes in, I'm the person that gets to pour through every single piece of documentation to make sure it's going to meet our quality standards. So, some of the things that I'm looking for what is the active ingredient, what potencies we might be looking at. If it's something like a plant material, what's the species? I'm going to review all of the testing details. What kind of testing methods are we going to be performing? We have to figure out what we're going to test for. We have to source what are called reference materials that are validated to test against to make sure that what we have matches what the certificate of analysis says it is. And then we have to set up all of that testing for that in-house method and get all of that methodology approved by our accrediting agencies. And so we're looking at a lot of that documentation. In terms of the ingredients itself, I want to look at things like allergens and contaminants, composition statements, which would disclose any carriers. We look heavily at the flow chart, which is a detail of every step of how a raw material was made. We look at things like allergen statements, the composition statements, disclosures such as that. We also look at things like non-irradiation statements and solvent statements. If it's a flavor, I want to know how that natural flavor was made. I want to know what's in it. Obviously, we're reviewing the clinical studies and all of the clinical research in depth. We have a massive team of folks that are constantly reviewing the science, as well as the safety and the toxicity studies that have been performed. We review things like the stability for shelf life purposes. And we review things like sustainability documentation. If it's a plant material, where was it grown? Is it a certain time of year that it has to be harvested? So we might look at harvest season, non-GMO documentation, organic certifications. Is it grass-fed? Things of that nature. Is it kosher? Is it halal? We look at patents. We look at trademarks. We look at all kinds of international compliance documentation, specific country compliance, and is there a method that's already been developed available for testing? Sometimes we have to kind of work to create methodologies and have them validated to ensure that we can test these things properly. So I get to kind of be really heavily involved in just pouring into all of that research before a raw material even gets set up in our system.
So I'm so appreciative for the way that you broke all that down, because I think when a lot of people look at supplements, they're like, "Oh, I'm going to buy my magnesium glycinate, there it is on the shelf, et cetera." But everything you just said that goes into how a product like that is created or thought through and brought in is, I don't think most people appreciate the level of nuance that goes into creating a new supplement. I mean, you even chelate magnesium glycinate in house, which I don't think most people do. Can you talk a little bit about that concept as well?
Sure. So we have a division of our company that specifically works on the development of chelating minerals. Chelation is the chemical binding of a mineral to a ligand. So in this case, when we talk about magnesium glycinate, it's magnesium bound to the amino acid glycine. Um, and this is really important for gentle digestion and absorption of the minerals itself. And it's commonly claimed throughout the industry. People constantly use the word chelated. But it's actually a really, really difficult process to prove if something is actually and truly chelated. And Solaray has invested millions of dollars in perfecting this process. One of the things that we do is we work with the University of Oregon to test for actual chelation. We use some techniques such as X-ray crystallography and X-ray diffraction. And this is going to help us ensure proper crystalline structure of our magnesium glycinate. And then every single lot of our magnesium glycinate is then compared to the sample using what's called infrared spectroscopy. I can tell you many brands do not have the proper instruments to identify a true chelation. They don't really take any verification steps of any kind to verify that the magnesium glycinate is a true chelate. And we know because we've tested quite literally every single magnesium glycinate in the market that they are not always chelated, even though that word is used pretty frequently. Solaray is one of the only consumer brands that I'm aware of that does its own proprietary in-house chelation testing methodology.
So I love that because I see it on labels everywhere. There's, for me, even for me, there's no way to verify if something is actually chelated properly or not. So that's really helpful to understand. So all this testing, all the ingredients coming in, let's take a little bit more of an umbrella view. You guys are thinking, you have so many products in your database. How do you know when to launch a new product or even what trends to follow when you're thinking about formulations?
I think a lot of that has to do with just how tied into the industry we are. We have such a wonderful relationship with our vendor partners. We're constantly meeting with all of the different raw material suppliers. We are constantly, meeting with their scientific teams, learning about all of the research and clinical studies that they're conducting, and what they're working on and what's coming down the road. We have a bird's eye view to everything happening in the industry and every raw material in the industry that's kind of coming up. And so it allows us to really choose what we feel are the best of the best and put our best foot forward. We're also involved with so many different trade organizations, things like the American Herbal Products Association, and we're constantly working with our retailers, hearing directly from them what is hot. We're constantly looking at trends. So, we've been a big player in the industry for so long that it really allows us to kind of command a position that gives us a bird's eye view of everything very early on. So,
I I think that's great. And so this bird's eye view, when you take a look at the industry, what's one ingredient or mechanism that you think is genuinely underappreciated or even misunderstood right now?
one of the underappreciated ingredients I would definitely say is probably potassium. I think everyone talks about magnesium and how important magnesium it is and how we aren't getting enough in our diets. And that's very true. But another mineral that most of us do not get enough of in our diet is potassium. I think potassium deserves to share that spotlight a little bit. It's actually really hard to hit the recommended daily amount of potassium, which is 4,700 milligrams a day. And so, just to give you an idea of what that would encompass, a banana or a serving of watermelon would have roughly 500 milligrams of potassium. So, you'd have to eat nearly 10 bananas to get the daily amount of potassium that you need. And yes, electrolyte products have certainly soared in popularity, but so many of them have very, very little potassium in that, which not enough consumers are even aware of. The average person is not keeping track of all of that potassium that they're consuming on average each day. And in general, a large percentage of the population consistently does not meet their daily intake of potassium. So,
I love it. Potassium is not something you hear a lot about. I think that's a perfect example of like why to share that. I think this is just so good for people to hear. For Solaray, Rachel, what do you want the people taking your products every day to understand about what went into making them? That thing that never is going to make it onto a label, but is so, so important to know.
just the time that it takes to ensure efficacy to meet the claims that are on the label, the work and the amount of work that it takes, it's astronomical, the number of hours that go into creating a new product, from ideation to research and reading all through the clinical studies and just seeing if this is a commercially viable product. And none of that would be possible if it weren't for the people behind the products. This company has so much pride in what we do. There are so many people involved in making these products that just have such a passion for what we do. You know, even our own CEO loves to talk about how they take over 18 products every day, and they're the first person to let you know what is inside their supplement cabinet. And we have so many employees here with 10 to 30 years of experience and time with the company. And for me personally, I've been here for 17 years. So I think the people and the passion behind the products and the time and the love and the care that we put into putting these products out would definitely be the one thing I'd love to convey to everyone.
Oh, I love that. That's so well said. So, Rachel, my last question for you. I want to know personally, I want to know one supplement that you cannot live without. And I also want to know one flying under the radar that you wish more people were talking about.
Sure. So I would say the one product I cannot live without is kind of an oldie. I started taking this product back when I was still in high school. It was the very first product that I ever learned about from Solaray, and I still take it every single day. And it's been, gosh, a good 30 years now. And that is our quercetin, bromelain, and vitamin C product. Quercetin is a bioflavonoid alongside vitamin C. A lot of people don't realize that anywhere you have vitamin C naturally occurring in nature, you also have bioflavonoids, and they are synergistic and need to be taken together. And there's also the addition of a really wonderful enzyme from pineapple called bromelain, which has all kinds of great research. And I take this just daily as part of my daily regimen and can't say enough good things about it. So the one flying under the radar, the one I think right now for me, it would be a new enzyme product called DAO enzyme. And DAO stands for diamine oxidase. It is an enzyme in the body. It's actually found in the gut. And it's the enzyme responsible for breaking down histamine, both from the food that we eat and from the bacteria in our gut that can produce histamine. And so there's a lot of new and emerging science on this great enzyme. I've been taking it now for a couple years. It's sort of trending on the up and up and kind of becoming more aware in different circles, but I think it definitely needs a little more attention because it's a really great option for a lot of people.
I love it. Over 50 years in the making, 99% of products in-house fully vertically integrated and producing some of the greatest supplements on the market today. Solaray, Rachel Kilroy, thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks so much for having me.